Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to share my experience with gentle sleep training because it's a little bit different than what I did with Nikash, which is just a cry it out method. This includes a little bit of cry it out, but it's, you'll see why it's called gentle. Before I get started, this video is sponsored by Chicco. I'm really excited to talk to you more about their PhysioForma pacifier that we've been using with Ayla. All right, so when people say gentle sleep training, there are a lot of different definitions for it. Some people mean gentle sleep training and there's no crying whatsoever, whereas I'm doing the version where it's, I guess, closer to like a Ferber method of sleep training where we do check-ins with our baby when she starts crying. So it's a little bit different in that sense. There is a little bit of crying that happens because your baby is very upset with you when you put them down, especially if they get used to falling asleep with, a bottle or something like that during a feeding. It makes it a little bit harder to sleep train them. With Nikash, our older child, we did the more traditional cry it out method with him because, at the time we were so sleep deprived and we had to get up, go to work, do all that kind of normal stuff, the way our schedules used to be. And so for us, it was really important to sleep train him quicker. I find that gentle sleep training takes a little bit longer. It's a little bit of a slower process because you are, doing these check-ins and you're slowly getting your child adapted to falling asleep on their own. But one thing I will say, while there are pros and cons to both, the pros for, the traditional cry it out is that Nikash became a really good sleeper much quicker, but some of the cons were that he had all these regressions and we kept going through that process with him before we finally just gave into a little bit more of a gentle method of sleep training with him where we allowed him to have a pacifier and we allowed him to have a blanket. So we're sort of taking that approach with Ayla where we are doing the check-ins. We also aren't on this like strict schedule to have to get up and go to work anymore. And when I say we, me and my husband, we are home, working from home these days and for the past few months because of the self-quarantine stuff. So it wasn't so urgent to get her sleep trained as it was when we had Nikash. We've been going through this method with her for a few weeks and it hasn't really been bothersome because we have been home most of the time. Now let's get into the tips. So tip number one, and this is probably the most important one, is that schedules are a must. So Ayla is 10 months old and that means that she has 2 naps during the day. She wakes up at 7 or 7:15 every single morning and we give her her bottle feed at that time. And then from there, we let her play for the next 40 minutes or so. And then at 8 a.m., and we're not really strict with this by the way, but around 8 a.m., we feed her her first meal that is a solid meal. So we give her some of the typical foods that we would eat for breakfast, whether that's eggs or, some fruit, some oatmeal, anything like that. She has her first solid meal at 8 o'clock. Then we let her play for a little while longer and put her down for her first nap around 9:15 to 9:30. That nap is allowed to go all the way till 11:15 in the morning, but she usually wakes herself up around 11 a.m. Then we get her up, give her her milk again, and then she gets to play for a little while, and then around noon, she has her next solid meal. After that, we let her play a little bit longer, and then she goes back down for her second nap around 1 p.m. So it's about between 1 to 1:30, depending on how tired she seems. I've made the mistake of thinking she doesn't seem very tired and then taking her up closer to 1:30 and she was just way too tired at that point. So you have to just kind of watch your baby's cues. Then we get her up around 3 to 3:15 and then she's up for the next couple of hours. We actually take her out for a walk in her stroller around 4 o'clock or so and then get her back into the house and we get her in for her last solid meal of the day, which is her 5 p.m. dinner. Then she eats a whole solid meal. I take her up around 7 o'clock for her bedtime schedule. So that's when we do her bedtime routine. We do a whole bath time situation, read her a book, and then I give her one last feeding with a bottle, and then she goes down for her nap. And when I say that she's drinking milk, I'm not saying that she's drinking cow's milk. We're still feeding her formula. For us, the schedule has been the key for sleep training. Babies really, really need schedules. Even toddlers need schedules. And we kind of let our schedule just get a little crazy during self-quarantine because we were home all day and we started kind of just bending the rules that we had set for ourselves. So getting back on this schedule and just making sure that we stuck it out really has helped us just in general as a family kind of get ourselves together. But it's also really helped Ayla with her development and everything because I think she just really needed that schedule for her sleep. Once we got Ayla on a schedule, it really helped her development, but it also helped her sleep better. I think when you have these predictable times for your baby, it helps them know that this is, they have their own internal cues and their own biological clock that really helps them learn to be better sleepers. Schedules are also really important because it helps you figure figure out all of the feeding times for your baby, because one thing that people constantly ask me about sleep training is whether I feed our babies at night. So this is when I sleep train Nikash, and also now with Ayla. People always ask, like, do you wake your baby up for a dream feed, or do you let them eat in the middle of the night? And for this for sleep training, I don't really feed Ayla at night unless it really seems like she just needs it. But that's part of the whole sleep training, is making sure that you're on a schedule, you know all the times that they eat, and they do too, so that they do get that proper amount of food during the day and you don't have to feed them in the middle of the night. Tip number 2 is that self-soothing is very, very important for sleep training. And what I mean by self-soothing, there are some different definitions for it also. With traditional sleep training, you don't usually give your baby an item to soothe themselves. They're reliant on their fingers a lot of the time. But with Nikash, he ended up regressing a little bit, and then we ended up giving him a pacifier, and he loved it and became a really good sleeper from that too. So we decided to just go ahead and give Ayla not only pacifiers, but we gave her a Lovey as well. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the pacifiers that we've been using are the Chicco PhysioForma. What I really like about these are, one, they're made completely of silicone and it's just one piece, so it follows the guidelines for the American Academy of Pediatrics. Not to mention, the AAP recommends the use of pacifiers to help prevent SIDS for babies. These are really cool pacifiers because they have this unique kind of nipple, and you can see it like turns up a little bit, so it really actually helps your baby breathe, and it's really soothing for them as they're sleeping as well, and it stays in their mouth a lot easier than other pacifiers, because that was one of the problems that we had with Nikash, was some of the pacifiers we tried with him would fall out so quickly that he would just cry all the time, whereas these stay in your baby's mouth a little bit longer, and so they're not irritable throughout the night. It turns out she really likes these pacifiers and they stay in her mouth, so that was a really important part of choosing the pacifiers that we were going to use. Chicco sent me all of different colors, but my favorites have been these pink ones, and what I really like is that they come in different sizes for your baby. So this is for babies that are 0 to 6 months old, and these are the ones that Ayla is using now, which is for babies that are 6 to 16 months old. I know a lot of people have mentioned to me, you know, do your baby's teeth get messed up when they use a pacifier? These are orthodontic pacifiers, so they actually allow for proper development of your baby's teeth. They also have these really cute Loveys that they call pocket buddies that are very, very cute by Chicco. We use them in the car with Ayla when she is playing with her pacifier and we don't want it to drop. It actually has kind of like a kangaroo patch where you can place the pacifier if it's not in use, and that way it doesn't just get dirty or anything, but then you can pull it out and it's attached to something. So you can have your pacifiers on their own or you can attach them. And I really like that concept a lot better because it's not just a pacifier that has a, you know, like stuffed animal attached to it at all times. Instead, you get to choose when that happens. I do want to point out though that every single baby is different when it comes to just anything in life, but with sleep training, what we found with Nikash was when we first introduced a pacifier, he had to kind of get used to using it, and he would cry sometimes when he would wake up and look for his pacifier, but that took about like a month of him getting used to having one, and then he did the same exact thing as Ayla, where he would go to sleep with the pacifier and then he wouldn't ask for it or cry for it throughout the night. One of the other ways that we allow Ayla to self-soothe is with a Lovey. We love the blankets from Little Giraffe. We gave Nikash a little giraffe blanket and he still uses it to this day. And so we got Ayla a little Lovey version of it. It's just super, super soft, and that's what we like about it. She got a little pink one, he's got a white one. And then we'll eventually move her when she's a little bit older, about 1. We'll move her to an actual blanket by Little Giraffe, but we started with the little Loveys. And the reason why I think the Loveys are important is because it's just nice to have that comfort. We like to, you know, have a little bit of comfort when we go to sleep and whatever rituals that we have. And I think the Lovey is just really important for that, for them to feel like they just have, you know, something with them that they just love. And because it's so soft and silky, I noticed that she'll like touch it and play with it when she's going to sleep. One of the next tips is to have a sound machine. This is one of the most important tips. This is whether you're doing a traditional sleep training or a gentle sleep training, you should have a sound machine. A sound machine is great because it really helps your baby just kind of get into the mode. It's almost like meditating, where you focus only on the fact that you're, you know, trying to calm down and go to sleep, and you don't really pay attention to all the sounds happening around you. The sound machine is great because we also have Nikash now, who makes a ton of noise at all times. We can have the TV on whatever it is that we want to do, we don't have to really change what we're doing outside of the nursery because Ayla doesn't hear anything because we have the sound machine on. We always use the sound machine while both of our kids are sleeping. Nikash still sleeps with the sound machine, and actually we sleep with the sound machine because it really does just help you stay asleep and really drowns out all of the outside noises. Piggybacking off of the sound machine, having the right items is really important for sleep training, and you don't have to have a lot of stuff. Obviously, I mentioned the pacifiers and the Lovey and having a sound machine, but it's also really important to have the right kind of monitor. For instance, I have the Miku and I really, really love it because otherwise I'd be really stressed out trying to figure out if she's sleeping, if she's comfortable, any of that kind of stuff. So having the right monitor for your child is really important. I also think nighttime diapers are very important once your baby is sleep training and after they have become sleep trained. And that's because you don't want to have to worry about changing them during the night. You want them to be able to sleep throughout the night for hours without being uncomfortable. So the nighttime diapers are great because they just soak up so much more and your baby still wakes up feeling really dry in the morning. We use the ones from Huggies and we've been using those even with Nikash, so we've just continued with the Huggies. And then another item that I think is really important is to have a sleep sack. When your baby is under a year old, you can't give them a blanket, or it's recommended not to give them a blanket. So it's nice to give them a sleep sack because it's a comfortable way to stay warm, make sure that their temperature is comfortable and everything, especially if you're running the air conditioner like we do at night, and to prevent them from waking up because they're uncomfortable. So you want them to be in something like a sleep sack that's gonna keep them warm. We like the Halo sleep sacks. The zipper can get a little wonky sometimes, but for the most part, we really like the quality of them. And we feel like it's just the perfect weight for her as far as being just like, it's like that medium kind of temperature for her. It's not too heavy and warm. It's not too thin and cool. We just like it to be nice and, I don't know, just comfy, just right. And then last, it's really important to have a bedtime ritual. And this actually goes for the nap times too, but you can have a little bit more of a condensed version of the ritual for each of the naps. But I think it's really important to have cues where your baby knows, oh, okay, it's time to go to sleep. So with Ayla, what I like to do is around 7 o'clock is when I take her upstairs to her bedroom, and I basically just hold her. We go into her closet, we choose her little onesie that she's gonna wear for the night and her little sleep sack and everything. I get her undressed and then I give her a quick little bath, and then we brush her hair, and then I get her dressed and everything, and she kind of knows like, all right, so we're starting to get into our routine. And during that entire time, I play nursery rhymes. So she just kind of gets into this mind space of like, okay, it's time to go to sleep. The curtains are drawn, it's nice and dark in here. I've got my bedtime music playing. I will feed her, and then after I feed her, I actually read her a book. The book that we choose to read her every single night is Goodnight Moon. And we read her the same book every single night because it's just a cue, again, that she's about to go to bed. We actually read her different books for her naps. So we choose Goodnight Moon, and that's the book that we read to her every time she's gonna go to bed at night. That way she knows this is the long sleep. This is when I'm gonna go to bed for the night and really like stay asleep for a long time. I actually let her have her pacifier while I'm reading to her, and so sometimes she'll just chew on it and sometimes she'll suck on it, just kind of depending on the mood that she's in. And then I'll hold her for a little while, so it's about like anywhere between a minute to about 5 minutes, just to make sure that she's really getting sleepy. I turn on her sound machine and I just sway with her for a little while, and once she starts yawning and going to like getting that sleepiness to her, you can just kind of tell because she lays her head on your shoulder. Then I place her down. I put her Lovey next to her. She usually already has her pacifier with her. And then I just will pat her on the back for a little while, and then I leave. And now she's at a point where she actually is just going to sleep on her own. There isn't really much more to that process. Again, these, the ritual, the schedules, all of these things are really important because it gives your baby these cues that it's time to go to sleep or that it's time to eat during the day, any of that kind of stuff. Your baby just really needs these kind of cues, and keep them on a schedule and having a ritual really just helps that. As far as, tips to get started, there's a whole process. I have 2 videos, actually I've got 3 videos on sleep training. For the most part, I followed that method, except the difference is that I did a lot of check-ins with Ayla in the very beginning of sleep training her, so that was the only thing that was a little bit different. And when I did check-ins, I wasn't actually picking her up out of her crib. I was just either patting her on her back if she'd rolled over on her tummy, or putting my hand on her tummy or on her chest, or putting it next to her so that she knew I was there. The first night of it, I actually slept in the bed that was next to her crib, so she knew I was like kind of there the entire time. So that's the only thing that was really different about sleep training Ayla this time, and that's why I call it gentle sleep training too, is I did these like check-ins. She knew I was there a lot of the time, and we gave her these, you know, soothing methods like a pacifier and a Lovey, and that's not what we did with Nikash the first time. There was still some crying. There were definitely moments of just like letting her be in the crib by herself, and you know, like soothing herself and everything, and just getting comfortable with the idea of just not falling asleep in my arms. And that's just something to keep in mind. The first few days of sleep training your baby are rough. You're exhausted, your baby is exhausted, you definitely don't get a full night's sleep the first couple of days, and sometimes the naps are really hard to get adjusted to. Ayla took to the naps really, really quickly during this whole training process, and it was the nighttime, and still sometimes the night when it's nighttime when she still wakes up or has a little bit of a harder time, but now she falls asleep really quickly when we put her down, and that has been such a blessing to be able to like have the schedule, know when she's gonna go to sleep, and know that she's going to go to sleep on her own. So those are my tips for gentle sleep training that we did with Ayla. Like I said, I also have my traditional sleep training videos that we did with Nikash. There are 3 of them. One is for nighttime sleep training and the process that we went through, nap training, and then also we brought in our sleep trainer to help discuss and answer some of your questions. In the description box, I'll leave links to all of those videos. I'll also leave links to the products that I've used for sleep training and just for sleep in general. I'll leave links to the Chicco PhysioForma pacifier so you can take a look and buy them if you need them. And if you have any questions, you can ask me in the comments below. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.